Hey, what's up, guys? So with the release of Ableton Live 10 coming up in the next couple of days, I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video kind of helping and facilitating people making the switch to Ableton Live from another piece of music making software. And I think it's a good time to do that because, in my opinion, Ableton is pretty powerful, flexible, and robust. So if you have a basic theory about MIDI and audio, and you kind of understand how audio chains and effects works, then this video is for you, and you're going to get a lot out of it. And by the end of it, I can almost guarantee that you'll have a firm grasp on what exactly is going on here. Because you've opened this up and you're just like, what's going on? And you've searched and you found this video, I hope. So if you find this video useful, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, a like, becoming a patron on Patreon, hitting me up with a donation, all that fun stuff. It really means a lot and it helps. So we've opened it up and here she is. We need to figure out what our audio situation is. So if you have an audio interface, then you're going to want to go to options. Even if you don't have an audio interface, go to options, preferences, and then go down to the test tone and then toggle that on. If you hear that sine wave, then you have audio coming out. Ableton is effectively sending audio to your sound card. But if you have an ASIO sound card, like I think most of us might have one, you're going to want to go to driver type. Now, MME/DirectX is what they have for Windows. Core Audio is for Mac. I'm going to select the drop-down menu here, go to ASIO, and it automatically selected my Sapphire. I have a few other ones, just whatever sound card you have. You want to select the audio device, and then go back to test tone. And then you have a sine wave, perfect. And set up your hardware setup, things like that. Then you have your buffer size, things. Don't worry about that. I'm sure you know exactly what's going on there. So we'll move on. Another important aspect is our VSTs. So you're going to want to go to File folder, and then plugin sources. Toggle the custom folder on, and then browse for your VST plugins folder. Ableton 10 only supports 64-bit plugins now. Ableton is 64-bit only. I'm hoping that's a good thing. I hope that it speeds up iterations and development. But yeah, so you can't load 32-bit plugins anymore. So yeah, select that. Browse for your file folder. Mine happens to be VST plugins. Hit rescan, and it'll take a little while to scan them. It did with me. That's why I did it beforehand, just to save a painful couple of minutes, just me not doing anything on this video. So we will close that. And here we are. This is what you'll be looking at, and you'll be like, what's going on? So basic rundown of the Ableton interface is, think of Ableton as two separate programs. There's two ways to work. There is the session and there's the arrangement. So let me just highlight those two areas and actually share the same area right here. So this is the session and arrangement area, this whole window area right here. What we're in right now is the session view, and the session view is a non-linear way of piecing together ideas, additioning ideas, and just getting rough ideas down. You're not actually arranging things. That is for the next view, which is over here. When I select this, boom. This is the arrangement view. This is a linear way of building a track. This is a, I guess, traditional way of building the track. And you can go back by hitting the tab button. Cycle between those. You don't have to use the session view. You can only use the arrangement, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's a traditional way of going about things. But the session view is worth learning because it's an easy way to get ideas down, and it's pretty fun. And this is where the live name in Ableton Live came from. You can perform live with these things. Ableton uses little pieces of ideas called clips. And clips can be a MIDI file, it can be an audio file, they can be an MP3, they can be a movie. Clips can be almost anything. It's really, really cool. So let's move on to another area. We'll come back to that. We're just doing basic broad brushstrokes here. This is the coolest area of them all, I think, anyway. This is, oops, what the heck? This is the browser. And the browser is Ableton's way of communicating to the outside world. Basically, the browser is you browse and you drag things onto the session or arrangement view, and you build your track. So it's fairly well organized, and in Ableton 10, you have even more customization. You have your sounds, Ableton sounds. You can open these up. These are Ableton sounds. You can click on any of them to listen. You can preview down there. There's a little preview window. Pretty cool. Your sounds, your drums. Drums are in things called kits. I'll explain what those are a little bit later. This is for those switching from FL Studio. These might be very useful to you. Got your instruments with the brand new wavetable and the drum rack once again. Impulse, which is like a light drum rack, instrument rack, operator, sampler, all sorts of really powerful, fun stuff. Audio effects, filter, mastering grade, EQ, glue compressor, very high quality plugins, or they're called devices, really. Audio effects, MIDI effects, which will be before like an instrument to affect the MIDI. Also really cool. Max for Live. Max for Live is a major selling point. Max for Live allows you to build custom devices with Ableton and all sorts of fun things. You can also download them. There's like LFOs, shapers, envelope, MIDI mod, like all these cool things. You can also download and build your own. There's plenty of free ones on the internet. Really exciting stuff. Plugins. These are all your plugins that you scanned for. These are mine, so I guess go ahead and copy them or whatever. But this is where you import, or this is where all your plugins live, basically. And to kind of briefly organize them, the icons without the keyboard are effects. The ones with the keyboard, you can see, are instruments. Clips are things that you save. I don't have all the factory content installed on this. I'm waiting for the actual release to come out in a couple days. But this is where your clips will be. And clips, again, are little ideas, basically. They can be almost anything. Samples are just every piece of sample material that you have in Ableton. And a lot of really cool ones. And with that being said, down here we have packs. Now in Ableton Live 10, you can download your packs directly within Ableton. You don't need to go to the site and then import them. You can download them right here, and there's super cool drum machines, drum essentials, all sorts of stuff. You just click and download. User library, these are all of your saved Ableton things. They can be plugin combinations and things called racks. Group things, grooves. You can extract grooves from other tracks. You can do all sorts of stuff, presets from audio effects, instruments, things like that. Sampler stuff, imported sampler stuff, got an M piano, old school stabs, all sorts of things. And that is your user library. The current project is a way to see everything that's occurring in your project. Ableton projects are called live sets. And I think that goes back to antiquity, because Ableton Live was built for live performance in mind. So they just kind of carried that on. They're called live sets. And then library. This is my library. You can actually go to an add folder, this one right here, and you can. I actually have a hard drive dedicated for samples that's almost full, and you can import, or not import. You can point to your sample folder, or like your desktop, or anything like that. You can also drag things from your desktop to Ableton. So high amount of flexibility there. So that is that. That's the browser. Down here is something that is very useful to a lot of people, including me sometimes. This is the info view. Now it's blank right now, but as soon as I hover over something, it'll tell me what that is. And it's like a little help menu always there when you need it. And it'll tell us what's going on. So that is the play button. I didn't know that. Did you? I'm just joking. So that's the play button. I hover over it, tells me what that is, what it does. Even in your instruments and effects, it'll tell you what's going on. Very useful. And if you don't see that, you can actually hold the shift and the question mark, and you can toggle it on and off if you'd like. But we're going to leave that on just for the sake of learnings. Another one is one of the last sections here, second last section, is the instrument and clip view, right? So I mentioned that Ableton works in things called clips. Clips are little ideas, and clips can be MIDI, audio. They are down here. They kind of live down here, and uh, it doubles as looking at your audio chain, so you can switch between them, and it'll become more and more apparent as you get used to the software and play around a bit. So there is that. We'll go over that, I promise. So let's go up here. So up here is transport, MIDI, and a bunch of other stuff that um, could be useful to you. So you got your tempo, self-explanatory, tap tempo, Ableton link. Ableton can now directly talk to other Ableton computers running Ableton on the internet, and syncs them up. You can like mix and match ideas. Really exciting. Over a network. I don't think I mentioned that. You got your play, pause, if we go over to arrangement view by hitting tab or clicking on that, we will see the playhead. That's the playhead start. That's where it's going to start. We can select there, play, pause, record. Recording. I'm gonna go over that. That can be a little tricky your first time. Things like capture, MIDI overdub. I'm referencing the bottom left hand corner thing. Your loop area, where you want to loop. And over here is your loop length, and then you can toggle loop on and off. So if you want to like loop something and work on it, that's what I call this like transport control. And then up here is your pen mode. You can toggle this to draw in MIDI. Toggle this button to use your computer keyboard, like typing keyboard, as a MIDI device. So your home row and a couple ones above that will be your keyboard. Really exciting. Key for mapping any button to a key. Mapping anything to a MIDI device. CPU meter, disk overload, and MIDI track in and out. Things like that. It'll become more and more clear as you learn. I'm just going to go over the basics. So let's start with the session view. We're going to go over to session view or press tab, what have you. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Let's just select a channel. Select MIDI 1, delete. Select 2 audio, delete. Select 2 audio, delete. And then we'll delete these. I'm hitting del, delete, whatever. I can also right click and then hit delete for these two guys here, delete the sends. So we're left with a single MIDI clip, or single MIDI channel. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. So let's drop in something called a drum rack. And there's some drums here in the categories, and we're going to go 909. What we can do is we can drag it to MIDI. And it takes a little bit to drag it in the first time for some reason. So we can do that, drag that there. I'm going to select this down here and then delete that. I can also select this MIDI channel here by like selecting it, making sure it's highlighted. And then I can drag the 909 down here. So there's a couple options of dragging something. This is the 909 core kit. So this is a basic drum rack. Don't let it confuse you, but yeah, basically it is each one of these pads is a sound. So it's a 4x4, and it's like a classical drum rack. Each one of these racks is linked to a sampler, but we don't need to get into that quite yet. And you have something here called a macro. These are all your macros, and these are customizable. This one is mapped to the comp amount, things like that. And you can toggle them by hitting this logo here, the show hide macro controls. We'll just get rid of that. So let's listen to this by hitting the play button. All right, so say we want to put that into Ableton, into the session view. I dragged it in to this channel. How do I get it to go? Well, each one of these blocks right here, you can load a clip in, and only one clip. This is basically a MIDI clip. So what we can do is we can actually double click, and then there's our MIDI clip. And it's a bar long, The length is 1 bar. Very easy. And what we'll do is I'll make myself a little bit smaller. We will take a look at the piano here. And there's this magnifying glass. I'm actually moving it up and down. Super simple. And Ableton's kind of smart. It knows that the piano roll, I'll call it a piano roll, the MIDI clip actually is mapped, or it corresponds to the 909. And what I'm doing is I'm moving between the clip. Remember the clip and device view down here? I'm moving between them. I have this clip here selected. So let's just get in a kick down here. So here's our kick. And each one of these dots, each one of these is set to 16ths. And this is the Ableton grid. This can be a little bit confusing. So what I want to do is I want to make it less confusing. So I want to make a simple kick beat happening every 4 times every bar. So I'm gonna have that for every quarter note. I'm going to right click on this group, and right now it's set to 16ths. I'm gonna set it to quarter. Boom. So now the grid has changed. I can actually double click to create a kick here and a kick here. I can also go up to this pen draw tool, and I can draw in the kick like that. And I can hit B to untoggle that. So if I hit play up here, nothing will happen, because this is the session view is a non-linear way. It's not going to play unless I arm this to play. Then the play button's right there. You play things in clips. You play the ideas. So we're going to play that. Right? So when I hit play again, that will play every time. And if I want to stop that from playing, there's a little stop button here. Boom. All right, so this is effectively our first idea. It's a lame idea, but it's our first one, really. So I'm going to create another idea directly below it. Boom, boom. So I double-clicked, and I created a new MIDI clip. Right? So there's this clip, which is the one where we have our kick, and then down here, it's empty. It's because it's a brand new MIDI clip, and it's a brand new idea on the same channel. So let's look down here. You can use your mouse wheel also. I want a kick. I kind of know where the quarter notes are because this is set to 16ths, but let's just keep it simple. We'll go quarter, double click, double click, double click, double click. I can select and delete. I can select and delete. I want to add a snare, and then another snare. And then I want a 16ths hi-hat close. So I'll right click and then go 16ths and then double click, double click. I can also hit B, very important button, and then hold, left click, and then drag over. Hitting play, nothing happens because I stopped all of it. I'm going to hit this idea. All right, so this is, you can only play one of these at a time. Let's add in a bass line, okay? I really hope you guys are enjoying this video. Let's go to instruments, and then we'll add wavetable. Let's just add in a wavetable, just for fun. It's all brand new Ableton, so it has to like initialize. So this is the wavetable down here. You can also drag in a VST, but this is also MIDI. So I want to draw something in. So I will double click. Let's just double click down here because we can move these around actually. But let's just do that down here. And I want this to be, see, the keyboard has changed. It knows that it's talking to an instrument. So I'll draw that in. And I want to elongate that MIDI note, so I will hit B to not draw it. And I'll just go like that. I can select the end. See the icon thing change? I can select the end. And then I can double click, select the end, move that over. So let's give that a try. Hit spacebar to stop, and yeah, that's interesting. But let's go back down to wavetable to the device, and I'll just, going over wavetable is beyond the scope of this video, but you can probably figure it out. going to select the wavetable by selecting this. Now I want something with a bit more harmonics. And then I want the frequency of the cutoff to go down. This is a filter, very high quality. All right, that sounds good. I'm going to actually double click to close it, or to collapse it, not close it. And I'm going to go back to my clip. I can double click on that, opens up the clip there. And this is how the bottom section works. Anything you click on, it'll open that clip in the bottom right here. So I want to move this down an octave or two. So I'm going to select all of that, hit Shift, and then press down. And that moves it down. I'm going to hit play again. And hold Shift and hit down again. Moved it down another octave. All right, so I want to know what this sounds like in conjunction to these two ideas that I've made in the drums. Like, I want to know what it sounds like. Does it sound good with, I'll just solo. Does it sound good with this? Or does it sound good with this? Right? And I can do that all on solo. And yeah, this bass line is armed to record, or armed to play. And this one is armed to play. Let's just see what that sounds like. Or this one, and I can do that whilst it's playing, and because the quantization is set to 1 bar, it always stays in sync. So I'll show you how that works. All right, there's that. Let's add in something from a sample pack. Let's go. Let's do some house or deep melodic techno. Okay, so we have wave. We'll go top loops. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to drag that, and I don't even have to create a new track. I can drag it into here. It'll automatically create a new track, and I can just play this, and then give this a play. Right? Easy examples, I guess. And yeah, once we have something that we like, we can just, So how it works is this can be used in a number of ways, but let's just say we like this drum pattern, this wavetable pattern, and then this drum loop. That is, we put them all into one row, and that is a scene 3. And we can launch those all at once by launching the entire scene. So we'll launch this one. Right? Cool, fun way to get an idea down. And then once we have an idea that we like, I'm like, okay, we have this idea, and I want to bring it into arrangement view to make a track. I'm going to take that whole scene, just select scene 3 or whatever it is, that whole row, move this over to arrangement, and then there she goes. And it's kind of see-through right now, and that's fine because we're still in session view. Things are wanting to play. So what we can do, we can hit this button down here, which is back to arrangement, or we can click on this and then select this, which is also the same thing. So we can just hit back to arrangement, and then there you have it. We have our tracks here. So how I zoomed in, I'm going to get into the arrangement view basics and some other things very quickly. I just want to explain what I'm doing because I tend to do things and then not explain it. How you zoom in and out of the arrangement is you select this area up here, this like no man's land, and things like that. So yeah, let's just play around in the arrangement. So we have this right here. Actually, let's start a new live set. Just for the sake of having fun there. Okay, so let's say I want to do I want to work in arrangement. Session, it's just not for me, and that's perfectly valid. We can go our entire Ableton careers with have no idea what session view does. That's perfectly valid. So we have arrangement. We are currently in arrangement. Super fun. We have our default set, which is 2 MIDIs, 2 audios, and send and return. Let's just get rid of those guys by selecting them and then hitting delete. We'll delete that. Okay, so we have a MIDI clip here. So remember I was talking about the grids, how the grids are kind of adaptive? You notice down here that one of these grid things is 1 bar. That's what it's telling you what it is. And as we zoom in, one of those is half a bar, etc., etc. We can also right-click and notice that it's on adaptive grid, which kind of changes the grid as we zoom in and out. But let's go fixed grid for now. Let's go 1 bar. Right, so we are on 1 bar, so no matter how much we zoom in or zoom out, we always have 1 bar going on. So one of the things is like, how do I make a MIDI track in the arrangement view? How do I do that? Well, you select an area. You right-click, and then you go Insert MIDI Clips. Bam. All right, so this is a MIDI clip. Let's drag in some drums. Right, we can drag in the 909. We can do that, or we'll do it in a different way. We'll drag in the drum rack effect, or device, you call it. We'll drag it in right here. Right? This is a empty drum rack. So each one of these corresponds to a drum sound. So let's go into our library. You don't have to do this, but if you have library, that's all well and good. Drum hits. I'll go to drum hits. I want a kick. That's a cool sounding kick. I will drag and drop it into this drum pad here. I want a clap. There we go. Got a clap. And then I want a hi-hat. Okay. So we got kick, clap, hi-hat. And this is your drum kit making idea. So we're going to go over to our clip here. We can select it. We can double click it. And it automatically knew we have kick, clap, and hat. So I think we're pretty confident we've effectively made a 1 bar MIDI clip. So we can kind of see on here where the quarter notes are. So let's just do that. Double click, hold that over. So I'm going to teach you a very, very important shortcut. And that is Shift D. You can select this, kick right here, hold Shift, press D. Oh, wait. Sorry, not Shift, Control. Control D. The Shift is for another thing. So you select the kick, Control D. And that'll duplicate that. And then we can add in a clap, elongate that, select this whole area, because if I select this clap right here, it'll just duplicate there. I don't want to do that. Learning how to duplicate is essential in Ableton. So we'll select this whole area here. You'll notice that this white line lets us know that we've selected that area. Control D, bam. So we'll go to hi-hats, and I'll just go 16ths, and then duplicate. Cool, all right. So we have effectively a MIDI drum rack going on. Pretty cool, I guess. We have the follow on, which will follow the playhead. Ableton will automatically scroll. If you don't want that, just turn that off. Turn that off, get rid of it. And we can always select where we want Ableton to start from by just moving over here. So we have the fixed grid on for 1 bar still. I want to turn that off. I like to have it set to narrow for the most part. We have this thing right here. Let's loop that. So there's a couple ways to go about it. We can zoom out and then grab this loop or whatever and then loop it. But let's just select this, right click, and then loop selection. Boom. Automatically looped. So we can just loop this. And Bob is your blood relative. So we have this right here. So that is a basic drum rack. You don't have to do that. You can have these in just audio and then select this area, Control D, and then you can have your hi-hats that way. We'll do a better example with percussion. So you can have sounds. It's really flexible. There's no wrong way to do it. Just go through sounds here. And then select all that, which is half a bar, Control D. So say if we want to, let's just bring the volume down. Say if we want to kind of EQ and mix things a bit. Well, we can do that. You have the volume here, but also a really cool feature is if we hit tab and go to the session view, you can treat the session view as a mixing apparatus. So we're going to drag this to make our levels a bit more cohesively visible. And then we have this drum rack. You'll notice that we have this little upside down triangle. We can actually, bam, expand that. And we have the ability to mix each one of these. So that hi-hat was a little bit too loud. So I'll bring that down in volume. So that is that. I want to show you one more thing, which is pretty useful. So if we double click on our clip here, MIDI clip, we have the ability to, we can do a lot of things, but I just want to get over the basics to help you up and running. We have our groove here. Now groove is swing, right? So what we can do is we can do something called a hot swap. So we'll click on that hot swap and look at our browser. Our browser will automatically, boom, move over there. And then we have swing and groove. We have hip hop. We got the tried and tested Logic swings, MPC swings, SP1200, all sorts of fun stuff. And you can just go bananas. So yeah, we have all these different swings. Let's take a listen. All right, cool. I'm gonna double click on that and you'll notice that it will appear down here. So this is the MPC 16 Funker 50. And let's give this a play now. Let's do a little bit, another swing here. We'll double click on that, it'll appear here. That's a little bit more obvious. So I'll turn off that. So check this out. Gives it a really cool swing. And there it is. So it appears down there. And let's say if we make a new MIDI track, we go down here, we create one, and we want to have that same groove. We can go down here and we can select the same one, or have different grooves for different MIDI devices or different MIDI clips and things like that. And how you manage all of your grooves that you have installed is by clicking this groove pool squiggly line thing. And you'll have all your swings down here and then your global amount. See, Ableton is extremely flexible when it comes to this. You can do so many cool things. You can, even accentuate the global amount. Or even just tame everything down a little bit. And that's how you get a groove if you want more of a fun feel. So there is that. That is arrangement and things like that. I want to go over. I think it's important that I go over warping next. Now, warping is really tricky for a lot of people. It takes a little while to kind of get used to, but I'm going to go to, I guess, samples and break 134. So we're 122, and then we're dragging in something that's 100. So Ableton's pretty smart. It knows that this is 100 BPM, and it warped it, time stretched it accordingly. So check this out. I'm going to solo this one. And we have Ableton is really powerful at stretching and manipulating audio. And there's a couple ways to go about this. So we have this drum loop here. Right, I just shortened this by selecting this area near the top. You see it's context sensitive now. We can adjust things. Anyway, so you have this piece of audio here. So say if I wanted to like stretch and manipulate this piece of audio, you have to double click and adjust the warp markers. And there's one at the beginning by default, which you right click and set to 1:1. But you can also double click on these guys, right? Beginning and near the end, maybe this one right here. And from there, you can actually warp and manipulate and stretch and extrude and do all sorts of fun stuff to that. And that will play in your audio. So right now it's set to repitch. So it's kind of like a 1-to-1. If you stretch something a certain amount, it will the pitch will go down. Right? Sounds a little weird, but that's because repitch is on. We can set this to a number of different algorithms. One is beats, which detects transients, things like that. Right, maintains the pitch the best that it can. There are limits, but even if you limit and accentuate and go beyond what it's capable of, it can still sound really cool. You can get some like really cool effects if you like stretch this guy. Etc., etc. We'll just undo. There we go. Things like that. You can transpose up and down. Right, and that's for beats. So different pieces of audio material require different warping algorithms. And no, I forgot. When you select this, this will give it a warp. Without, if you turn this off, it'll turn into an audio track. And that's also a really good example. So say you drag something in, you sampled it from a piece of vinyl, or someone rapped, or someone said whatever, like a piece of audio that's completely out of time. So like listen to this. Right, you want to warp that. You want to beat match that. So we will select warp, and I'll hit no. Nope. Never mind. Yes. So I didn't import the last ones there. So we will look at this here. And I'll just do this. So I want this to be kind of, turn off looping. I want this to be warped so it makes sense. I'll turn on my metronome. And it doesn't sound that great. So I will find the beginning, which I have. It's a good idea to find the beginning and then set 1:1 there. It's already like that. Right, so this will be where it's kind of ended. What I can do is just move that over to the 2. So this is the start of the second bar. Right, practice and experiment. Warping will become like second nature eventually. I promise you. It just takes a little bit. So there's that algorithm, which is beats. You got tone, grain size, which would be for like a trumpet or a bass or something like that. A texture would be like an inharmonic sort of thing. There's different options there, grain size and flux. Repitch is just whatever it is. Like a vinyl record, etc., etc. I'll loop this again. And then you have Complex and then Complex Pro. Complex and Complex Pro are for complicated pieces of audio, like voice, things like that. And you can do all sorts of stuff. And it will interpolate the waveforms and things like that to something that makes sense. So there's that. I wanted to briefly touch on warping and its importantness, things like that. I want to also go over, how you drag in the VST effects. It's so simple. You just drag it in, and it will appear. Got a Avenger going on here, and I'll do that. It's actually muted. Got your, you can load a massive, all sorts of things like that. It just works. Then your effects, you move in your effects like so, and things like that. So this brings me into the realm of routing. And routing in Ableton, you can just go bananas with it, but we're gonna go nice and slow. So routing in Ableton, everything is routed into the master. So all these channels are routed into the master down here. And that's all well and good, but you can also drop down and then route these into something else, or just route the MIDI. So I'll give you an example of some basic Ableton routing. You hold Shift, you select the drum rack and this percussion that we made, and we can right click and then group. And now each of these, oops, I actually didn't do that. Shift, there, selected both. I unselected it. Group tracks, bam. So you'll notice that group, and we can also change the color things. This group, we can collapse it, is the drum rack and that percussion. And then we have this guy all by itself. And in Ableton, we can now group within groups. So now we can do cool things like have a pre-master effect chain, which is infinitely useful. So that's basic routing. So say if we wanted to kind of route everything into a channel, so or route what was playing. We're gonna do something called resampling. So I will create a new audio track. Boom, and by default, there's an external in to all the channels all ready to go, but it's off, so it's not actually doing something. Like every channel except MIDI is doing this. MIDI is actually accepting MIDI incoming signals from everything. So we have external in, which will be our sound card. So 1 and 2, things like that, which would be NT1A and a tube mic behind me picking up on what I'm saying. Can record vocals, stereo, synths, all that sort of fun stuff. But then we have a couple different things. These are rewire. I'm sure we'll get into that later. I want to record what is happening in group 1. Boom. So what I can do is I can actually mute group 1, and the mixer is accepting it, but it's not actually playing it. I need to hit in. So now, yeah. So, wait, sorry. So I confused myself. So I'm going to have that off, and I have the option of being post mixer. With it muted, nothing's going to come out, and I can have it post effects or pre effects. So I'm going to go post effects. Right, so this is essentially mirrored. So what I can do is I can actually record this. By hitting this record button, this is effectively arming it to record. And if I want to record more than one thing, I can hit Control and record all these guys. But you have to make sure that it's set to in and then post effects. So let's hit that record button. It'll just, and then set our playhead here. It'll just record. Right, and there's our piece of audio. It is see-through because it's still in the record mode, and I can go off and then it's no longer recording, and then here she is. And yeah, that's basic recording, resampling, which is the easiest example, or recording from another piece, another audio chain. Anything in Ableton can be routed to anything. It's pretty fun. Okay, I'm going to go over, yeah, I went over arming as well. You can record multiple things at once, even MIDI inputs, like this. Right? So you got your MIDI inputs, you can record that and do all sorts of fun things with that. I want to go over chains. So I'm going to play basically what I recorded in here. And I'm hitting the space bar to play for those in the know. I'm going to hit loop. So this loops, and I can drag this out, and it'll loop for as long as I want. I'm going to set it to 1-1 for now. So I'm going to go over routing. So how it works in Ableton is everything in a channel that you are selecting appears in like down here, essentially. I'm going to add some effects to this channel here. I'll just do EQ just by dragging it in. I'm not actually dragging it into the clip. I can drag it there. I can drag it here. I can double click and it'll appear. That was kind of rhymey. And yeah, things kind of go left to right. And I'll give you an example. And yeah, things go left to right. So how you do something called racks, chains, parallel effects is, let's say I want more control over this reverb. I want to be able to mix the wet and the dry more better. And I want to just affect only the reverb. I'll kind of explain this the best I can. You will right click on the top of the reverb and you'll go group. Now group has like multiple functions here. Grouping means that, yeah, everything in here, I can just drag it into this box. Everything is grouped. And stuff like that. So I have a reverb, simple delay, and a spectrum. Everything is grouped. And what I can do is I can save this. I can do all sorts of fun things. That little icon here to save preset. And hot swap presets. Yeah, it's just a group, like a self-enclosed effect. Like you think like a pedal board is a self-enclosed effect group. That's basically what's going on. But we can actually do something really fun. We can have macros, which we can map to things. I can map, I guess, no, yeah. I can right-click on anything here and then map it to macro 1, this one to macro 5. I can rename, etc., and that will control the wet dry. I can control multiple things at once to varying degrees. But that's all well and good. I'll just unmap those things. It's all well and good, really flexible. But that's how I got rid of that. So if I go to this guy right here, I'll just close this, open this guy. This is the chain, right? So what happens is audio comes in from this guy, and then it is output from here to the reverb. I can actually split this by right-clicking and then creating a new chain, right? So I have this chain right here, and then this chain right here, which has the reverb on it, effectively doubling it up, which makes it louder. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my reverb, set it to 100% wet, and then bring the volume down. Go back here, and this is the dry chain. So nothing's happening. I'm turning it on and off. But as I mix this in, I am mixing in that wet reverb sound. I'll solo it for you. Right, so it's like really flexible and super fun. And given that flexibility, I can create a chain like an EQ that doesn't affect the dry chain, but affects only the reverb. And I can get really flexible and creative with that. You can double click on that to collapse it and then check it out. And I can make like weird stuff. I can also do something called parallel compression by dropping a compressor in there, bring the threshold down, ratio, and just going crazy. Yeah, and that is effectively taking a single signal and then splitting it. And you can right-click and drag as many chains and create as many chains as you want and get really creative. You can save them. You can create all sorts of fun stuff. And there you have it. You can also save it as whatever you want, etc., etc. Yeah, racks, chains. You can also go to instruments, and then you can create an instrument rack, which I will drag down there. And you can basically stack multiple instruments. You can have wavetable stacked with operator, stacked with Avenger, and then mix them, pan them, all sorts of fun stuff, and you can just do and have them all playing at once, and then have them, each of these, having their own special kind of effect. Let's say like a phaser or whatever, right? all self-enclosed into one group, and then have those summed together. I'll just double click, have them summed together, and then have them being compressed. And then maybe having that one, dropping that one in, grouping, and then splitting them off again. So like 3 instruments affected separately, merged together into a compressor, and then split again into this, and then merged in again. And then you can select all of those. Select left or right, select those, and then you can group those into one cohesive group, double click, and have all sorts of crazy stuff going on there. Really flexible, and that's all within one channel. And if you ask me, that's pretty impressive to me, and that should be enough to get you started. So I'm going to show you something really important. We're going to create a new set, and we'll delete what we recorded. I recommend that you delete MIDI 1 and audio 2, so you have audio, MIDI, and then if you want sends, by all means leave them, but I'll get rid of those. So we have that. I want you to drag in EQ, and then another EQ, and then you want EQ on everything. And on the master, just drop in a limiter. That switched over, but whatever. So we have a limiter on the master channel. So this is, a basic idea. And over time, you'll figure out like how you want your Ableton set to be when you start it up. We'll get all these guys. Oh, crap. Okay, I haven't actually gone over a really important thing. Really sorry. This won't take long at all. So we'll go sample. I'll go break. So we got 100 BPM. And I'm stretching this open because when I go down to my clip, the loop is selected. Loop option. So this will loop over and over and over again. I will right click that whole area and select loop. And I'm going to drag in a really awesome effect. Automation is very important. I apologize. So I'll drop in auto filter, which is pretty cool. Move this guy over. Right, basic filter. If I want to automate that, it's actually pretty simple. You go over here and you go into automation mode. Click on that. And then it's very context sensitive. I'll just open that. Right, so we have auto filter frequency. Whatever we click on the last and move around is basically what will appear here. We've got resonance, frequency. Notice how it changes. It's context sensitive. It knows exactly kind of what you're playing around with. So we just wiggle it, and then we have a couple options. We can select B to turn on our draw tool. We can draw in automation. Right, that sounds whatever. But we can also select B to turn off the pen tool, and then click and make these little automation breakpoints, which is pretty fun. Let's boost the resonance just so we can really hear it. You can do all sorts of stuff. And if you always want this to continue being there, because if we click on the resonance again, it'll disappear. We don't want that. Let's click on the frequency again. To highlight it, we'll click this little plus button. Boom. Auto frequency is always there, and we can click on anything else, and it will always be there. So we'll always have that as a reference. And yeah, let's zoom in a tiny bit and press B. We can draw in resonance frequency. We're so crazy. Right, and that's basic automation. We'll click on that, and then once we're done, we click on this. Automation goes away. We can get to arrangement, things like that. Click on automation again. There it is, and we can automate almost anything in Ableton. And that's the basic way of going about it. I wanted to delete that and delete that. I wanted to show you like setting up something that is something that you're going to be using all the time, and that is your template. Put a limiter on there just to protect your ears. If you get like volume overload, you might get crackling or something like that. Kind of get rid of that. Go to options. Once you have a set that you like, it can be you can populate it with your favorite synths, favorite drum rack, different routings, etc., etc. Go to options, preferences. File folder, save current set as default. So whenever you open it, you'll get the same basic set. And Ableton, if you remember, Ableton calls things that you save sets. So how that works is you make a track. It sounds awesome. Our track is very small. Whatever we want to save, we actually need to select. That's very important. It's not going to just save it. It'll only save whatever you've selected. So you can start from the beginning, wherever your track is, hold Shift, and then select the area that you want to render. Go to File, Export, Audio, or Video. And you can select WAV, a FLAC. You can also encode as MP3, upload to sound, and like the video as well. And the render start and render length is there, and you can change it. But you're just kind of confusing yourself. Whatever you select will automatically be selected in this range whenever you're done. Super fun. There's that, and how it works is the live sets. This is very important. How it works is the live sets. You save everything, all your drum racks, all your samples. The live set, if you set it to just save, it'll save just like a file that will just point to all of them in your library. And if you move something around, you'll get a sample missing. So a good way to mitigate that is to save live set as, etc., etc. And once that's done, you go collect all and save. And then just select everything, even from factory packs. This will save everything to that folder. So nothing will go missing and everything's well organized. So it'll just make a copy of everything. It won't actually point to it. And that is that video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you found this useful, please consider doing those things that I told you in the beginning. Become a patron. Leave a comment. Leave a donation. What else? What else do? You like? I think I already said that. Who knows? Anyway, I hope you enjoy Ableton Live 10. I have a bunch more other videos covering little tricks and tips. I just wanted to get the basics done. And I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good one.